everyone, and welcome again to what is in many respects part 2 continuation of Hero version 4's Whole of Home release webinars. This one hosted in conjunction with the NatHERS administrators on the technical aspects of Whole of Home in Hero. Hero version 4 is our NatHERS accredited Whole of Home release, and we're really proud of the seamless, fast, easy but powerful integration that we've delivered for you guys in this major update. In the first webinar of this V4 series, which you can find on our YouTube page or our website blog or our social media feeds, we touched on the NCC 2022, background of Whole of Home, what the requirements are. We touched on which states are implementing Whole of Home and their implementation dates. And then we gave a brief overview of appliances in Hero. In that webinar, I also expressed my own personal excitement and positivity on the introduction of Whole of Home framework into NatHERS, how we feel it's a great step in the right direction for our residential building industry. It can deliver a lot of great value to our clients, our design teams, and the final occupants beyond the star rating and thermal fabric conversations that we've been focused on. And it sets us up on a strong foundation as we continue moving into a low carbon future. We also discussed all the other new features in Hero version 4, such as our site analysis view, summary view changes, future weather file capabilities, drawing stamper, and quite a few other things. So if you missed that, I hope you can go back and give that one a listen. Today we're in the trenches, or maybe it's Whole of Home boot camp, and I'm going to give you a solid understanding of Whole of Home and appliances in Hero. And by the end of it, you might be a bit cross-eyed, but I hope you'll be completely set to go forward and start getting stuck in to some Whole of Home NatHERS assessments using Hero. So on the agenda today, I'll introduce Whole of Home and our appliances view. We'll show you its benefits, power, its really nice and seamless integration, and its quick and easy setup. We'll then be going through category by category each of the various appliance types in Whole of Home and the various options that are available, what each of these types are, and how to model them based on what's available in the market. We'll then cover some of the additional settings and features in Hero Whole of Home that you should know about. We'll then cover the overall results aspects of Whole of Home, including the rating. We'll briefly discuss multi-dwelling modeling for Whole of Home, and we'll finish with a quick section on Whole of Home certification. Alright maggots, let's get started. Whole of Home in Hero is what we more broadly call appliances, and so you can access it in the Summary View Appliances tab. To get started on using appliances and Whole of Home, it's as simple as turning on the Enable Appliances Whole of Home setting here in the Setup section. When you enable appliances, you instantly get a range of default appliances created for you in the necessary categories. So we've created a default HVAC system, hot water, cooking, lighting, and plug loads for you. You can at any time during your project just turn off the appliances setting if you're just wanting to focus on the star rating. It'll keep all of your appliances there till you re-enable that setting. You'll see we're already getting these new results down the bottom of Hero in the status bar. We don't yet have a Whole of Home rating yet because we don't have the Whole of Home NatHERS simulations that will feed into the HVAC loads. So we're missing HVAC in the overall results. But we do see we already have an annual energy value in kilowatt hours, an overall running cost based on the NatHERS fuel tariffs for each state, and the overall operational greenhouse gas emissions, again based on the NatHERS state-by-state fuel emissions. So one thing you may notice as we go through the appliances is that there's no explicit Calculate Whole of Home button by default shown in Hero. Whole of Home calculations in Hero default are automatic. We do a full NatHERS Whole of Home calculation of all the appliances over the year at the end of any NatHERS simulations after you've hit run, and upon any change in any of your appliances. So if you change the hot water type or the hot water star rating, or change the capacity or picture of your solar PV system or anything like that, the Whole of Home rating and the energy, running cost and emissions results are updated almost instantaneously as we implemented the Whole of Home calculation methodology into Hero in a really quick, efficient manner. And that's really one of the big benefits of Hero Whole of Home. It's really fantastic, quick and useful to be able to just click through and vary your systems and almost instantly see how they affect your project live on the fly. Okay, let's take a look at each of these appliance categories that make up this Whole of Home rating. So there are a range of appliance categories in Hero, each of which is either a regulated or non-regulated load. The regulated load categories are those that will contribute and affect your Whole of Home rating, and these are heating and cooling, or HVAC, hot water, lighting, pools and pool pumps if you have them, and then solar PV and batteries if you have them. We then have non-regulated categories, which are the appliances that don't affect the actual whole of home rating. These non-regulated categories are cooking, which is your cooktops and ovens, and also the plug loads, which is the category that represents the remainder of the expected electricity demand from items such as fridges, washing machines, and other devices that I'll explain later. So we still enter these non-regulated categories so that we get a better overall energy profile for your home. As while they don't affect the whole of home rating, they do still contribute and affect the overall energy, running cost, and emissions. And also importantly, mean that any solar PV and battery modeling can be matched against a more reliable overall energy estimate too. The first category of appliances is heating and cooling, or HVAC. But before we get started into these HVAC types, we do need to talk about the input HVAC loads that feed into the heating and cooling appliance calculations. So for whole of home, your thermal fabric does affect your HVAC result. And so this is the category where improving the thermal fabric can improve your whole of home rating. So to calculate the demand or thermal load of this heating and cooling equipment, we have to start by running two new Chenath simulations. These simulations are the whole of home all-day profile, which represents occupants who are mostly at home, conditioning the place during the day, quite similar to our star rating thermal fabric profile, and the whole of home workday Chenath simulation profile, which represents occupants who are mostly out of the home during the day and conditioning the home in the morning and afternoon and night. We then average the results of these two Chenath whole of home simulations into a single annual hourly result profile on a 60% 40% weighting for all day and workday respectively, and that's the thermal demand for our heating and cooling appliances. So you can see in our example here, because we just turned on appliances, we're missing those Chenath whole of home thermal loads. And that's why we don't have any HVAC results and why we don't yet have a whole of home rating. And you can see this alert here at the top of the HVAC section telling us exactly that. So all we need to do though is just run a simulation like usual. So what we're doing now is that instead of just running a star rating Chenath simulation or thermal fabric simulation, Hero is now running all three of these Chenath simulations in parallel, side by side. So the star rating run and these new two whole of home run. And it'd even be four in parallel if you've enabled the optional free running thermal comfort profile too. And so again, this is one of the really cool benefits of Hero Whole of Home, is that you just get your whole of home simulations done side by side with your thermal fabric or star rating run. Because anytime you touch the house, like you change a window spec or whatever, just like when we're doing star rating runs, you'd have to re-simulate your Chenath results. And that includes the whole of home Chenath results too. But it's just done really seamlessly side by side in Hero. And so this is going to save you a lot of time rather than a process that would force you to do these as a completely separate sequential process. So we're pretty happy with how we've got that integrated. Okay, our simulation's done. All three of those simulations took the same time as just updating our star rating simulation, and we now have these HVAC loads. Therefore, whole of home automatically calculated itself at the end of that simulation. We picked up those new Chenath whole of home loads, did all the whole of home calculations, and you can see we now have a HVAC result, and down the bottom we now have a whole of home rating. It's not a great rating, but that's because we've still got everything on default. Alright, so now we can finally look at the HVAC types available here. Firstly, you'll see that the first selectable HVAC type is called None Unknown, or Default AC. So let me explain that one because it's quite important. So firstly, in NatHERS Whole of Home, you have to have a HVAC system for the dwelling, even if you don't plan on installing one. And you have to have a HVAC system connected to every NatHERS condition zone. So even a daytime toilet or your laundry without a window all need to be connected to a HVAC system. And so if you're not planning on installing something to those zones, or you don't know what it is, you have to model this default option, unless, as per the tech notes, it's directly adjacent to another similarly daytime or nighttime condition zone, where you can then use the adjacent zone's HVAC system too. I'm really not sure I'm in complete agreement with this idea. In my opinion, we might be potentially over-incentivizing installing ACs, incentivizing ducted systems over splits, punishing the use of really small, efficient air cons in a main room. So you're likely to expect to see a lot of this default none HVAC system in your projects, but that's what it is at the moment. We'll see how that plays out. So in the tech notes, the default ACs that this none unknown represents is a room air conditioner. So that's just a split type AC. And depending on where you are, it has to use these ZERL energy ratings. So 1-star heating, 2-star cooling in a cold ZERL climate, 2-star heating and cooling in a mixed climate, and 2.5-star heating and cooling in a hot climate. But you don't really need to worry about that in Hero. You just select this unknown default AC. We already know where the climate zone is. It's shown here at the top of the header. And you'll see the star rating of this system will automatically adjust, and the star rating scale is disabled here too. So before I step through the other types of HVAC systems, let's just finish up our project here using the default. So as I mentioned, you need all condition zones connected to a HVAC system for a whole of home rating to be produced. And you can do that using the zone selector here. And we can select that and see which zones are connected to this HVAC for heating and or cooling, and assign them accordingly. So if we have another AC type, such as a main air conditioner and then a lot of these default unknowns, we can just create another HVAC system here. And then we can just assign, and you'll see here there's no zones connected to this system yet. We can assign any zones that we'd like just by selecting it here in the zone selector. You'll then start seeing the individual results of each group at the top of each one in the results. Okay, let's start going through some of these HVAC types then. So we've discussed the default option, which is actually just a room air conditioner with locked star ratings. So we can see if we had just selected that, it would open up our options here. So this is just your wall split system AC, but it is also what you're meant to use for a multi-head split AC. So like wall-mounted units that are all connected to a single large condenser outside. That's if the system has a star rating. And when you select this, you can see the heating and cooling energy or star rating, and then also this star rating type. So room air conditioners and ducted air conditioners are set up almost the same, very similar options. Ducted options obviously just being a system that's connected through ductwork in the ceiling or floor voids to each zone. But in terms of star ratings for this, we have the newer ZERL, zoned energy rating label, and then the older energy rating, ERL, for ACs. So GEMS sets the minimum performance for ACs and the requirement to have energy rating labels for each unit. Though there are many exceptions to that energy rating requirement you should be aware of, e.g. ducted systems, three-phase AC systems, and multi-head splits. It's voluntary to have an energy rating. So you may find it difficult, particularly initially, getting some of these energy ratings for specified systems. So let's explain this ZERL and ERL. So this is old ERL. It was used on ACs pre-2019, and this is young ZERL HEMA that was introduced a few years ago. And you know, as Aussies, and I'm sure everyone in this room will agree, we just love rating things and making more ratings, you know. So old Earl here was too simple. Young ZERL, he's got all the bells and whistles. But ZERL does have some logic. It was that ACs do operate quite differently across different climates. It allows units to be specified a bit more appropriately to different climate zones, depending on whether you're in hot or cold or average climate zones. Adelaide is pretty average, eh? No, I'm joking. I love Adelaide. Anyway, Hero detects the climate zone, and we show you that at the top. And so if it is a ZERL or ERL rated system, you can likely find the star rating of that on the energyrating.gov.au website. You can even download the CSV of that whole database and look it up there. So if you're using ZERL, you select this and can select the heating and cooling stars for your climate zone. If you're using ERL, you select this here in Hero, and you actually then need to distinguish whether the unit has an inverter or not. ERL didn't tell us, so you do need to specify that too. Alright, let's check out the other HVAC types though. So we have an electric resistance heater, so like a panel electric heater or radiator, and so that's only heating only, and this is why we're now getting a lot of unassigned zone warnings, because we don't have a cooling system for all of these zones that I've just selected. So you'd need to set up a cooling system to go with these zones, or a default none. You then have ducted and room gas systems. So ducted gas, usually an outdoor gas heater pushing hot air through the ductwork in your ceiling or floor void again, and room gas being a fluid wall-mounted or floor-mounted gas heater, usually just for a single zone. So the gas heater appliances aren't rated on the energyrating.gov.au website, yet you can get their ratings on the Australian Gas Association AGA's directory, which we link to on our HVAC user manual page. And then you can look up this PDF and find the star ratings for your system there. There's no hydronic heating or cooling systems in NatHERS Whole of Home, so cooling's a bit rare. And again, my understanding is you'd have to do a default system to model hydronic. Hopefully they add that one in the future. And then we have wood heating and evaporative cooling. So again, for these two systems, they're heating only or cooling only. You would need to add another system, just like resistance heating, alongside that. All right, let's take a look at our sample project and show a kind of an example. So let's assume in this project, we are going to have, for simplicity, a ducted system connected to most of the conditioned bedrooms and living spaces. We would select ducted air conditioner. Let's say it's a new Zerl rated system with a heating star rating of 3 stars and a cooling star rating of 3 stars too. We would select what zones are connected to this system, and we'd also be able to claim adjacent zones to that ducted system to all adjacent zones that have a similar daytime or nighttime profile if adjacent. So I suppose the hall, which is a daytime zone, is adjacent to the kitchen, and the entry is adjacent to the lounge. The walk-in robe here is adjacent to a bedroom, so they're both nighttime condition zones. And on the bottom floor, assuming we have ducted into these bedroom and living room zones, both of these conditioned nighttime walk-in robes and en-suites would be able to claim the same system for bed 5. But in this instance, you would probably say that this ensuite and this WC would not be able to be on that same HVAC system. So let's select all of those condition zones here in the zone selector, and we'll just turn off that ensuite and WC for this ducted system that we have here. We see an unassigned zone warning, and then we can go down here. There's going to be no HVAC system connected to that WC and ensuite, so we can use none, and we'll select WC and ensuite 1 here. And now we have no warning. Okay, so that's the HVAC system done. We've got our energy results. We can see the impacts here in terms of energy, cost, and emissions of HVAC. You can even use this handy little comment section to add further recommendations and tips or suggestions to your clients. There's a variety of hot water services in Hero and Whole of Home, and I'll take you now through each type and the performance aspects that are available. A lot of them don't have any way of varying their efficiencies in regulatory mode. So if you don't know what hot water system you're using, as per the tech notes, in a gas connected area, you should be modeling a 4-star gas storage. And if there's no reticulated gas, the default then is an off-peak electric storage. Okay, so firstly, we have 2 electric storage options, just your standard electric element hot water heater with a tank. So you can choose though between a peak or an off-peak controlled system, and this is likewise for heat pump and solar electric boosted varieties. So peak would just mean a daytime controlled and operated system, and off-peak and nighttime or early morning operated devices. Usually smaller systems are peak, but people also connect up a peak so as to match a solar PV profile, whereas an off-peak system, usually larger systems that can get through the day without needing to turn on. We then have electric instantaneous hot water systems. So like instantaneous gas, but purely electric. You should be aware that most of these require 3-phase electricity. So you should ensure you have the appropriate electrical connection, switchboard, and can ensure the appropriate flow rate and temperatures. We then have gas storage, which is similar to electric storage, but using a gas element. These are rated on a star rating scale, so you can select that here. The range of stars available in NatHERS is limited between 4 and 5 stars, so that's limited in Hero too. We then have instantaneous or continuous gas. These are again rated on a star rating scale, and the possible range of star ratings is between 4 and 7. So just like gas heaters, you can find out the star ratings of gas storage and instantaneous systems not from energyrating.gov.au, but from the Australian Gas Association, and you'll find a link on our hot water user manual page. And again, when you dig into that PDF, you'll find the various gas storage and instant hot water heaters and their star ratings there in that PDF. Bit old school. We then have heat pump types, again with a peak and off-heat controlled variety. And in NatHERS, we calculate the efficiency of these units based on the number of STCs that the product gets awarded, which is similar to solar hot water too. So I'll discuss those first and then we'll discuss STC. So solar hot water, i.e. solar thermal hot water, not PV. We've got 3 systems available. So an electric boosted solar thermal system with again a peak or off-peak boosting control strategy, and a solar hot water with gas instantaneous boost. And these are rated again based on their SDCs. So let's talk about that. But there's also the last hot water type is wood. It's a standalone wood hot water heater. There's currently no combo heating, hot water, cooking style wood systems in NatHERS Whole of Home at this stage. So let's jump back to SDCs. So SDCs are small scale technology certificates awarded to heat pump and solar hot water systems based on their size and efficiency. So smaller systems usually get less SDCs than larger systems, but also more efficient systems get more SDCs than less efficient systems. So it's not just a simple more SDCs, it's better. And you'll see that in the Whole of Home ratings too, where you'll start skipping through these SDCs and you'll notice sometimes the rating will jump up and sometimes jump back. You'll also find sometimes SDCs that are invalid for your climate zone, meaning that there's no systems available on the market that meet that SDC level. And we'll warn you if this is an invalid SDC for that climate zone. Okay, where do you get that SDC value is very important for NatHERS Whole of Home. So in NatHERS, we've got to use a 10-year deeming period SDC value and not the actual SDCs awarded to you, which is based on the number of years from now, or date of install, until 2031 when the SDC scheme runs out. So firstly, don't use this calculator, which might pop up first in your search, and don't let your client use that for specifying. It doesn't use the 10-year deeming period, and the SDCs reported will be wrong. Instead, we recommend you use, download, or bookmark this page, again linked on our hot water user manual page, which allows you to download the whole registry for heat pumps and solar thermal systems. And in that, it will show you the original 10-year deeming period SDCs for each device across each climate zone too. So we've got another climate zone in NatHERS to add to the other 4 or whatever. So this one for hot water. And thankfully, again, you'll just see it up the top of the hot water section in Hero. It's only relevant for heat pumps and solar thermal. There's 4 climate zones for solar hot water and 5 for heat pump. And if you're in climate zone 5 and you're using a solar thermal, it would just be climate zone 4. So in this example, we are in a postcode out in Castlemaine where we are in a climate zone 5 heat pump if we were using heat pumps, or climate zone 4 if we were using solar hot water. So that's what this label is showing. If we were in Melbourne instead, which is just climate zone 4, we'd only see the single climate zone value. All right, let's fill this in for our sample project. So let's say I'm looking at the recent released Apricus all-in-one pentane heat pump. I'm in Castlemaine, which is in climate zone 5 for heat pumps, 4 if we were using solar hot water. So I can look up my model here in the spreadsheet. Here's the model, APHP R290 260 litre. And in zone 5, we would get awarded 31 SDCs. And remembering that REC calculator example, if we put this product in there, we can see it's awarding us 21 SDCs. So it's the 7-year deeming period value. So again, that's wrong. We want the 31 10-year deeming. And we can see our system has updated here. We've got a hot water service running about $330 a year. Okay, moving on to cooking. Cooking is a non-regulated load in that it doesn't contribute to your whole home rating, but does contribute to the energy cost and emissions. You only need to select your cooktop type and the oven type. There's 4 cooktop types available in Hero. Electric, which is like an electric and element cooktop, but also for things like halogen cooktops. We then have induction cooktops, gas cooktops, and LPG gas cooktops. And then you have electric, gas, or LPG ovens. And if the defaults, if you don't know what the systems are going to be, are a gas cooktop if there's gas connected to the home, or electric cooktop if there's no gas and an electric oven. Alright, for this sample, I really love my induction cooktop, though it's a bit fragile, but I'm a big foodie and it's awesome to cook on. And of course, we've got to go all electric so we can get 100% green power renewables, right? Lighting in Hero Vision 4 is simply assessed at this stage as a lighting power density. You just enter the watts per square meter. If you don't know what your lights are going to be, you can apply the default of 5 watts a square meter as per the tech notes. And so this value is the total installed wattage of all the lights in the home divided by the total dwelling area. My understanding is that area is the conditioned, unconditioned, and garage areas. So again, my understanding is you would ignore lighting or balcony, veranda lights, ignore any plugged-in lamps, and I'd expect you'd probably ignore some supplementary task lights like LED strips and overcooktop benches and those kind of things. Lighting also still does have the NCC 2022 maximum lighting power density limits, so be aware of that. For this sample, you can expect the lighting power density, however, to be quite different to that 5 watts a square meter on many jobs, particularly where they're predominantly LED, which is pretty darn common now, and assuming they don't just go to town with a downlight cannon and shoot up the ceiling. So, for example, in this sample dwelling, there's about 40 downlights shown across the dwelling, and let's assume there's 6 lights in the garage not shown. So assuming a 10 watt LED downlight, that's like 460 watts overall. And in this project, we have a total floor area of 228 square meters. And so we would get a lighting power density, in this instance, more around 2 watts a square meter. But if you're using 7 watt LED downlights, then you'd be more around the 1.4 watts a square meter. So you can see here the Whole of Home rating changed from 51.54. And from almost $180 a year to $50 a year. So yeah, don't ignore lighting if you can get the information from your client. Okay, so if you have a pool on the plans as part of the certification set, you must assess it in NatHERS Whole of Home. So obviously by default, we don't create a pool for you. You add this manually if you have one, or as many pools or spas as you have. You then enter in the details of the pool itself and then select the pump type, which is where the energy derives from. So you can select whether to enter in the area and depth of a pool to derive the volume, or you can select to enter in the volume of the pool. You then select the pool pump type, so that's the pump that's pulling all of the water through any filters, through any chlorinators and those kind of treatment systems. Pool heating or spa heating is not included, and any supplementary pumps and heating for those systems it can be ignored for now in NatHERS Whole of Home. So you have 3 different types of pool pumps available: single speed, dual speed, and variable speed. So in basic terms, you can reduce pump energy by running pumps at lower speeds for longer time. And by the cube law, you end up using quite a bit less energy. We have the traditional single speed pump, which is what most pools in Australia have traditionally had. They operate at a single speed, and you might then just be dialing up and down a timer during the year. And then we have dual speed pumps, which are quite rare and more commonly now variable speed or multi-speed pumps. A multi-speed pump is typically one where you have a variety of speed settings like low, medium, high that the occupant can select, whereas a true variable speed pump is something that controls this a bit more automatically. In NatHERS Whole of Home though, the multi-speed pumps and variable speed pumps are considered the same, so we lump them together. Pool pumps are one of the appliances governed by GEMS, in that they have a minimum performance requirement and also an energy rating. And so you can go along to the energy rating website and you'll see all the available pool pumps on the market, and you can see the star ratings there. The default star ratings for single speed are 1 star, dual speed 3 star, and for variable speed 5 stars. But if you look at the database, there's a high variability there as usual, and there's even pumps up to a star rating of 7 stars available. Pools and spas are big users of electricity and will bring down your Whole of Home rating, and invariably you'll likely have to compensate elsewhere in the rating. So plug loads are, as I already mentioned, a catch-all category that tries to provide a demand estimate for the remainder of electricity usage in a home, not covered by these regulated and fixed items, so televisions, washing machines, and everything else. And they are, as mentioned, there to provide a better overall demand profile, and they're important in sizing and calculating solar PV and battery systems. You don't get to vary this in regulatory mode Whole of Home, and you can see here it's locked at the moment, showing a load of 2,380 kilowatt hours a year. Or if we switch to daily results unit here, we can see about 6.5 kilowatt hours a day, and that value is based on the number of occupants, which is based on total floor area. But in non-regulatory mode, you can actually change it in Hero and switch it away from following the default requirements, and that can be pretty handy if you want to calculate a different overall demand profile and experiment with how the overall energy cost emissions might change if you have an occupant who's quite a heavy electricity user, or perhaps a super efficient low electricity consuming user. Or you might see how the solar battery balance might change if this plug load demand were to change, or for if the number of occupants was quite different, like some of these huge places I see coming through the Hero platform, where it seems like people are interpreting the old quarter acre Aussie dream as an internal quarter acre of floor space. Anyway, maybe I'm just jealous. But my point is, you can vary it, do some sensitivity analysis, and perhaps get a better picture for your client. In the solar and batteries section is where you create and set up your PV arrays. You describe your arrays, your inverters, and you can set up and add any batteries to that too. So you can add these as subcomponents inside this section where you can add multiple arrays, inverters, or batteries, as many as you'd like. And so an array for us is just a group of panels that face the same orientation and pitch. So if you have panels facing a different orientation, you can just create a second array group. So firstly, in the arrays, you enter in the total array capacity, and each panel might be 250 watts or whatever by the number of panels, and you get the total peak array capacity. We'll then provide you a rough guesstimate of area. We show you the flat area and the pitched area. So flat area would be what you'd measure off your Hero 2D floor plan, and the pitched area would be the actual angled roof area of the total panels. You can then select the azimuth or the orientation of what they're facing, and then you can enter in the pitch. And so 0-degree pitch would be flat, 90-degree pitch would be like a wall or something, like building integrated PV. Then there's an optional shade factor. This isn't required by NatHERS. You don't need to do this for regulatory assessments. It just adds a simple proportional shading loss to the system. So for this example, let's set up two arrays like we've got here. And what I've got here at my place is a 6.5 kilowatt system. So that's going to be about 20.3 flat area. Let's check that we've got roughly enough area there on the north face. And we might want to advise the architect to shift that skylight. We've got about 15 there, and we could probably fit some more panels above that skylight, but it might be better to move. And we've probably got another 20 square meters. So I think we'd be able to fit this quite easily, 6.5 kilowatts. And then you enter in the total inverter capacity. If your solar PV capacity ever exceeds your inverter capacity, the generation gets curtailed and dumped, and you'll start to see that down here in the solar PV results section. So note, it's pretty common in solar PV to oversize the panel capacity compared to the inverter capacity. So like I said, I have 6.5 kilowatts on a 5 kilowatt inverter. You do need to make sure though your inverter supports this. They have varying levels of oversizing capacity that they warrant. Oversizing is usually very sensible to do in a solar system because a lot of the time you're not producing anywhere near that peak, particularly when you have multiple orientations, and so that you can more economically size this inverter. And you can demonstrate that pretty easily where we see here, despite producing around 9,500 kilowatt hours of electricity, there's only about 80 kilowatt hours of generation that's curtailed on this 6.5 on a 5 kilowatt inverter. All right, in this section too, you can also add batteries. And so we have three types of batteries available in NatHERS Whole of Home. Their performance characteristics are all quite different. So we have lithium-ion batteries, which are increasingly the most common domestic variety used. We have the lead-acid battery type, which was the predominant solar battery type and still used. And we have zinc-bromine, and that's a more recent, less common battery type, such as what is produced by Redflow, an Aussie company. And so they all vary a bit in terms of how heavy they are and performance. They have varying levels of depth of discharge, of how much of your overall battery capacity you can be safely used before potentially impacting battery life. They also have slightly different charging and discharging efficiencies, as well as charge limits. So the proportion of the total battery capacity that you can push into it in 1 hour when charging. So let's look at how this calculation in solar is occurring using the new hourly results viewer in Hero. So this day shown here is a pretty good example. Here we have the solar generation profile. If the PV production exceeds the inverter's capacity, it's going to be curtailed and dumped. So if you have any electricity demand in the house, it will be met by the PV. If you have a battery and it's not fully charged and you still have excess solar, it will charge up that battery. If you still have excess solar, it will be exported to the grid. There is a feed-in tariff that's given to you for exported solar PV. There is, however, a network export limit, which is defaulted to 5 kilowatts in Hero at the moment. Most electricity networks do limit the amount of solar exported to 5 kilowatts per phase, but on some networks I hear it's even none. And some homes you might have a 3-phase connection where perhaps you can exceed that 5 kilowatt capacity. So we'll add that in future, I expect. If the solar production exceeded that 5 kilowatt export capacity, again, that would be another curtailed energy. And then later on, when the solar's not producing, then the battery will start supplying the load. And then any further electricity would be met by the electricity grid. So let's go into winter, like in this example here. Back into the solar section, you'll see here the solar PV results is a little bit different to the other categories. First, it's that negative value, as I mentioned, subtracting from the rest of the values. So firstly, we show that PV supply, the electricity demand met by PV. We then show the amount exported. And if you have one, you'll also see the battery supply. And then you'll also see the PV curtailed, which is the inverter curtailed and export curtailed. You then see these two, utilization rate and self-sufficiency rates. So they're similar, but a bit different. Utilization rate is how much of your solar you're using on site, and therefore the remainder is how much is getting exported. And when we have a battery, of course, we can use a lot of that electricity. So you can see here we went from 35% to 61% utilization. Sufficiency then is how much of your overall household electricity demand is met by your solar and battery system, and conversely then how much is coming from the grid. So two important metrics for solar systems that we'll want to consider moving forward. Coming back to the top of the appliances view, I'll just take you through quickly some of the settings that are available in the Whole of Home and Appliances section. You can run different NatHERS profiles, so you don't need to be just doing NCC 2022 to use Whole of Home in Hero. When you select 2019, you won't be able to certify a Whole of Home certificate, but you can certainly run it and start using it, and we recommend that for people who aren't on NCC 2022 yet, and the fuel tariff that's currently being used in Hero will allow you to vary that in a future update and enable Whole of Home DTS or elemental provisions here too. In the further settings, you can disable that automatic Whole of Home calculation aspect where every time you change something, the Whole of Home updates automatically. If you've got, say, a really large multi-dwelling project, and you're very welcome to turn that setting off, and then you'll start to see this calculate button shown at the top of the Whole of Home, and now you'll need to hit that to do a quick Whole of Home update. Again, it's super quick when you do that, don't forget it though. You can turn on the results of Whole of Home from an annual or daily perspective. I actually like using daily because I feel like a lot of people would understand a daily energy value of 5.1 kilowatt hours a day rather than an overall energy value of 1800 kilowatt hours a year. In the top toolbar, we then have the templates button, which is where you can save your current appliances as a template file. And then you can quickly just load that client's template file onto future jobs or projects, or when you're optimizing, you might want to have various saved scenarios that you like to apply and alternate on. So you might want to set up various templates for, say, each client or builder who might have a few different variations they only use. Share them with your team and quickly load them in on future projects. The next button is this cool little feature that we've added to version 4, which is the presentation mode, which allows you to put Hero into presentation mode where everything becomes uneditable and kind of read-only. And it's a great way to present the view so you don't see all the various other options that you can select. So very useful for client reporting and exporting to reports. You can then do, as usual in Hero, export a lot of exports. You can export now to PDF. We'll be enhancing that one further in a future update too. You can export each section to images and put them into your reports. And you can export the data to clipboard or CSV. So you can just grab those sections that you'd like and then just put them into your report. The hourly results to clipboard is pretty intense. It's the full hourly whole of home results, basically giving you all of the hours of the hourly energy cost and emissions of all the appliances and fuels in the project. So if you want to do some further post-processing on that, use those in your own work or research. Third-party tools, you can get those really quickly with that button. Okay, we've now gone through all the category of appliances in Whole of Home, and we have our final Whole of Home result with that 6.5 solar system and a 10 kilowatt hour battery. So let's see what the overall results are in Hero. So firstly, in the results summary, you see your annual results. Here we have our Whole of Home rating perfectly being 100 out of 100. 100 is theoretically a zero running cost home. That's what the Whole of Home rating scale is based off, though you can get up to a 150 Whole of Home rating out of 100, and that just recognizes when you get strongly negative values in running costs, when you have lots of solar and batteries. So we see our overall energy, so that would include gas, grid electricity, and the solar and batteries, as I mentioned, bring this negative. And you can have a negative value on all these energy, running cost, and emissions values when you have solar and batteries. And when you do so, we show these little achievement badges of 0 energy, 0 cost, and 0 net emissions, just to highlight that achievement, which is the direction we obviously need to keep moving towards and isn't too hard on many jobs. We can then go into the category by category results, where we'll see each of the appliance categories and their individual energy, running cost, and emissions. You can see again, solar and batteries are negative, and see that in a handy pie chart down the bottom, where we can see our results there too, with the amount of solar coverage showing around the outside of that chart. And you can change this chart on a energy, cost, or emissions basis. We then show the fuel breakdown, and so here you would see if we had a gas or LPG system in the results, fuel, we'd also see them. And if you have solar and battery, we break the electricity into a few extra categories. So you see the solar PV supplied, exported, battery supplied, and then the grid electricity and the overall electricity demand, and then the net electricity at the top there. And so in this project, you can see our running cost is around $20 at the moment, and our battery is saving us $610, our PV exporting $500, and our PV is supplying about $890. And likewise, you can see this in the pie chart in its different forms. We then show a month-by-month breakdown of energy cost and emissions in this monthly results section, and you can see how that varies across the year. Obviously negative in some months, and in winter in this project, we're still importing more electricity than producing. The last part of the results side of things that you might want to discover is, as I was showing before, is that the appliance results have been added into our hourly results viewer in Hero. And so you can see the hourly Whole of Home appliance results alongside your thermal temperature and thermal load results across the year, or just by themselves. You'll see here at the top of the chart is the demand categories. So all of the appliances except solar and batteries really, and you can just focus on that by turning off the lower areas here. And we can see just our demand appliances and see where this appliance demand occurs throughout the day. And on the negative y-axis, you'll see the fuel results, or you can just highlight that. And again, you see how the various fuels are used throughout the day, and gas and LPG and wood would be shown in here too if you had any. So this is a really cool way to analyze and understand the Whole of Home results, like how I was showing the solar section. But it's a very nice visual way for yourselves and your clients to understand what and when maybe using electricity or energy during the day, the scale of that demand, and how solar and batteries might be sized appropriately. And in the end, you just get a lot of great visuals that you can, as usual, export through the usual options to images or clipboard. Multi-dwelling whole of home projects are likewise super quick and easy to set up in Hero. So firstly, just note the different whole of home targets. Class 2 apartments and Class 4 have a whole of home target of 50 minimum instead of 60. Class 1 multi-dwelling projects still at that 60. When you have a multi-dwelling project in Hero, a few new options will become visible. Most importantly, this dwelling selector appears at the bottom of each appliance category. And just like when you're applying HVAC zones, you can just select dwellings here to assign or unassign dwellings to that specific appliance group. So you have the flexibility to either assign all dwellings that share that system type. You don't need to do one system per dwelling. But if you do have a different system, you can create a second appliance group and then just select the dwellings that that second appliance applies to. Or if you say had a solar system that was only used on a couple of the dwellings, you could unselect everything and leave some empty and just have those dwellings selected. Each dwelling does need the minimum HVAC, hot water, cooking, lighting, and plug loads for each dwelling. You'll get an alert if you're missing a dwelling. For a multi-dwelling project, you'll then see down the bottom of Hero the average whole of home rating, the minimum whole of home rating, which is the one you need to comply against, and you'll also see then the average and maximum energy running cost and emissions. And at the bottom of the results section now, you'll also see the individual dwelling whole of home ratings and their energy cost and emissions in the chart at the bottom too. Lastly, let's discuss whole of home certificates. So in this project, let's say we've got our final rating, our client's on board, 100 whole of home, net zero emissions, all the documentation is appropriate as per the tech notes. We're ready to certify or produce our draft NatHERS certificates. So this is exactly the same as the usual process, and the only setting to be aware of is this generate whole of home certificate setting. If you'd like to produce a thermal fabric only certificate, you can turn this setting off, and when you upload the project to the Hero portal, you'll just produce a thermal fabric only certificate, like what users have been doing in version 3.1 for a while. If this setting is on though, when we upload this file to the Hero web portal, we can download the draft certificate. And we'll see it is the new whole of home certificate type, where you see your whole of home rating and the whole of home scale. And on the second page, you'll see some whole of home charts, as well as some additional whole of home information. And then at the end of the certificate, you'll see your appliance schedule, where your cooling, heating, hot water, pool, and any solar PV and battery systems are shown too. Multi-dwelling projects, again the same. You upload your multi-dwelling Hero file. All of the individual and summary certificates and stamps get produced automatically. And you'll see on that certificate too, again, the minimum whole of home rating, and in the dwelling table, a new whole of home rating row. Okay, thanks everybody. I hope you're still with me. I hope you gained a lot from that session. Hope you're feeling confident moving forward with NatHERS Whole of Home on your projects for your clients. We look forward to seeing lots of NatHERS Whole of Home projects come through the platform over the coming weeks and months. As always, reach out to us if you need further assistance, support.hero-software.com.au or support@hero-software.com.au for our email. Most of this Whole of Home information is also contained on our online user manual page at that site too. Thanks again.